皆さんこんにちは、シェルビーです。今日は言語交換のパートナーとどんな会話をできるかについて紹介したいと思います。Hi everyone, my name is Shelby and today I'm going to be talking about tutors, language partners, and what you can talk about during language exchanges. I've been studying Japanese for about 4 years now, but I didn't start speaking or utilizing language exchange until last year when the pandemic kind of started. The reason why it took me so long to start was because I was so nervous to talk to someone in a language that I don't feel confident in. I know it can be really intimidating to start, so I wanted to make this video in hopes that it'll help someone. When I was first starting out with learning Japanese, I didn't know where to start with speaking. Fortunately, in this day and age, there are so many great resources, one of them being Busuu. Busuu is a language learning app that teaches up to 12 languages, one of them being Japanese. Now, before I began speaking with language partners and tutors through video calls or things like that, I started by writing sentences in Japanese for people to correct. What's great about Busuu is they have a community feature that's perfect for this. You can actually write your own sentences in the language you're learning, and then native speakers of that language can correct you. And vice versa, I can correct people who are learning English and help them with correct grammar and sentence structure. This is great because you can not only practice making your own sentences, but you can get feedback on what sounds most natural and what grammar is off and things like that. So right now I'm actually going to demonstrate the community feature just to show you how great it is. So if you look here, I'm going to say practice now. And they actually have it set up so that you can choose a photo to write about. So if you don't know what to say, you kind of have a little prompt. So I'm going to talk about this photo. And you can choose to either write or speak. So I'm going to write, Umi ni ikitai. And after, you can see what you wrote on your profile and get corrections from people. After practicing written Japanese on the community tab, you can actually use Busuu live lessons to practice speaking with a tutor. With Busuu live lessons, it not only helps you get comfortable speaking, but the tutors on there can also help you with grammar points, vocabulary, and other things you may be struggling with. With both the community and the live lessons features, Busuu is a great way to get started with speaking a language that you're trying to learn. Busuu also has a ton of other great features, including a study plan, structured lessons that teach you step by step, and so much more. The study plan is actually one of my favorite features because it'll keep you on track and keep you motivated seeing a structured schedule. If you're interested in learning more about Busuu, I will leave their links in the description box below and you can check it out for yourselves. Now I'm just going to talk about some general tips I have for you when you are speaking with a language partner or a tutor. One tip I have for you regarding finding a language partner is to find someone who is as serious as you are about the language exchange. If you're putting in a ton of effort but the other person isn't, and there's kind of a disconnect between the two of you, it can be challenging to keep up the language exchange if it feels one-sided. Another tip I have for you is to maybe find someone who's a similar level to you. I've done language exchanges where the other person was way more advanced than me and it ended up that we would default to English. I think if you are a similar level, you will balance between the two languages that you're speaking. Okay, now that the general tips are done, I can talk about what exactly you can talk about with a language exchange partner or a tutor. So the first one you can do is pretty straightforward, and this mostly applies to a tutor, but you can actually just use whatever textbook you're using and go through the dialogues with your tutor. So for example, I was using Genki 1 and Genki 2 and am now using the Tobiura textbook, and in each of those textbooks there are dialogues specifically to practice with someone. So what I will do with my tutor is I will speak person A in the dialogue and then the tutor will speak person B. Afterwards, there are usually questions about the dialogue you just had, so you can have your tutor ask you those questions and you can practice answering in Japanese. It's very structured and you don't have to think about conversation topics. You can kind of just dive right into dialogue and practice speaking out loud. The next thing you can do with either a tutor or language exchange partners is have debates. This one might be a little bit more advanced, but it is a great way to learn new vocabulary and practice producing sentences in your target language. What I do is I will prepare a topic beforehand so that both parties can practice or prepare a little bit. For example, one time I wanted to do a debate about if the advancement of AI will be beneficial or detrimental to our future society. By preparing this topic beforehand, I was able to look up words that I thought would come up during the debate. For example, I looked up words like technology or pros and cons, things like that. If you do a debate on a topic you're really interested in, then this is a great way to learn new vocabulary about that topic, because you have to research words and then memorize them and actually utilize them in the debate. The next thing I would do with tutors and language exchange partners is use a website called DMM Eikaiwa. This website is actually made for Japanese people who are learning English, but I think it also works for the opposite. So for me, an English speaker learning Japanese. This website has articles from intermediate to advanced to pro, I think even. The articles show the important vocabulary for the article in both English and Japanese, and then it will have the paragraph in Japanese, English, and then questions afterwards in both languages. What I did with one of my language partners is we would read the paragraphs in our target language. She would read the English and I was reading the Japanese, and we would correct each other's pronunciation and also write down words that we thought the other person struggled with. Using a site like DMM Eikaiwa not only helps your pronunciation, but it can also help with your kanji learning. I really liked using this website with my language exchange partners because if you didn't have anything to talk about for that day, you can practice something else, and in this case, we would practice our pronunciation. The next tip I have is to use something like a question book to think of topics to talk about with your language exchange partner. So for example, I have this book called One Question a Day. It was actually a gift and I didn't use it for language exchange, but it turns out it's a great way to get started. So this book is just filled with different questions like, what do you think will be different in your life next year? Or have you ever witnessed something miraculous? Random questions like these, and they range from all different topics. So if you ever don't know what to talk about with a language exchange partner, having something like this is a great conversation starter, and you can just translate these questions into Japanese or whatever language you are learning. And if you don't have one of these or you don't want to buy one, there are a ton of resources online. You can just look up question lists and just translate the questions from English into your target language. This next tip my tutor actually recommended to me, which has been incredibly helpful ever since I started doing it. What I will do is every lesson that I have with my tutor, I will have her write down the words that I didn't understand or that I didn't know during the lesson. After the lesson, I will have my tutor send me a list of those words, and usually it's about 5 to 10 words. And before our next lesson, I will write definitions for each of those words, but in Japanese. So for example, one time I was speaking with my tutor and she used the word oshimen. Oshimen is your bias or your favorite character or person in a group. So for my definition, I wrote, アイドルグループとか有名なキャラクターの中で一番好きなメンバーかキャラクター。By doing this, you're not only reviewing the words that you didn't know, but you're also learning how to describe that word in Japanese. And in the next lesson, your tutor can correct your definitions and then you can add them to whatever flashcard system you are using. By doing this, you not only get to learn new words, but you can learn them in context, which is way more helpful in remembering new vocabulary. For me personally, I will add these to my Anki decks and try to use these words in future lessons with my tutor. One final tip I have for you is to make a Google Sheets document that both you and your language partner can access. What I would do with my language partner is we would write down the words that each of us didn't know or struggled with, and we would put them in the Google Sheets document. We had a column for the word in English, the word in Japanese, a sentence in both English and Japanese, and a notes section. I can leave an example template in the description box below if you want to check out how I did it. So what we would do with this Excel spreadsheet is both of us would go into it and correct the English and Japanese and make sure that all the sentences made sense in both languages. So I would correct her English and she would correct my Japanese, and we would kind of translate the sentences together. I think it's really important when you're doing language exchanges and working with tutors to actually write down the words that you're learning and write down sentences for them. In the past, I wouldn't really write anything down, and then I would just forget about the vocabulary word the next time it was brought up. So having something like a Google Sheet spreadsheet is really helpful in retaining the information that you learn. And that's all I have for you today. I hope these tips helped you in some way. If you are starting to learn with tutors and language partners and you are intimidated, just know that it gets easier as you continue to practice, and it's nothing scary. I wish you luck, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!